Back here on Warchant TV for a freshman spotlight, FSU freshman spotlight. At the bye week, there's a lot to talk about with Florida State freshmen, and as you can see on the screen, quarterback Kevin Sperry is going to be the topic today. He's Ira Schofel, managing editor of Warchant.com. My name is Tom Lang, and we got ourselves a really fascinating one here, Ira, because Kevin Sperry was the first quarterback off the sidelines for Florida State's game against East Texas A&M. The fact that he got out there first is telling to me. The fact that he was an or on the depth chart for Florida State was also pretty telling. The language coming out of it distanced that decision a little bit from being definitive because Brock Glenn, Florida State's other understudy quarterback, was dealing with some health concerns in preseason camp. Where do you come out on the Kevin Sperry conversation as to his hierarchy behind Tommy Castellanos after East Texas A&M and as we project forward after the bye week?
Well, I think we should look at the facts as we know them, okay? A big fact is the fact that Kevin Sperry did go in right after Tommy Castellanos. So that would tell you, as you said, that he's number two. Another fact, though, that we can share is that Brock Glenn was injured during preseason camp. He missed, I think it may have been a week or more of preseason camp. So that's a substantial amount of time in preseason. And so that's a lot of reps he wasn't getting with the ones. And, you know, and the fact that Kevin Sperry, they love Kevin Sperry. So we know that. Like Gus Malzahn, Mike Norvell, they've been very high on Kevin Sperry since he got here in January. They said he was on an accelerated pace. They love what they saw him in the spring. We actually, some of the media got to go watch a scrimmage in the spring, and he was impressive in that scrimmage. So all of those things tell you that, yeah, there's a good chance he really may be competing for the number two spot. The one thing I would say, though, is they did talk about, as you said, maybe it was because he missed that time. I'm inclined to believe that. And also, I'm also using the fact that the circumstances are going to have a bearing on how he's used or how Kevin Sperry's used. I mean, I just think that when you look at a guy like Kevin Sperry, he is a promising freshman. This was a very low leverage situation to put him in because you're already up by 40 something points, whatever the score was when he got in the game. The game's well in hand and you're at home. And there was very little risk involved there. And then you still have Brock Glenn if you need to go to somebody else. If you're in a road game at Virginia or if you're in the Miami game and you have to go to a backup quarterback because something happens to Tommy Castellanos, whether it's his helmet coming off and he has to come off for a play, or whether it's, he's dealing with something and, whatever it is, that decision could be different. So I'm willing to accept their narrative that it was more about, or at least somewhat about the fact that Brock Glenn had missed that practice time and not just assume that, yeah, it's clearly Kevin Sperry is the number two. I feel like there's enough information that makes me believe that it may not be decided, even though a lot of people feel like maybe it already is.
Well, and allow me to play the role of cynic here. You would definitely say that in terms of the Brock Glenn language and the messaging, because you got to keep Brock engaged, because a freshman can go through peaks and valleys. It's not a linear growth. And so you're probably going to need Brock at some point this year if there is a need for a backup quarterback at all. So could it be that the messaging about Brock Glenn and the injury is to make sure that Brock stays locked in the era when kids just want to run to the portal or if they're passed up on the depth chart, sometimes they pout a little bit.
Well, I would say, the thing about Brock is he's proven to be pretty darn loyal. He's been here now. This is his third season, or he's in his third year at Florida State. He watched them bring in DJ Uyunglele last year after he had played he came in late in the season in 2022 or 2023, played in the bowl game, played in the ACC championship game, even came in some of the Florida game. They went out and got DJ Uyunglele, which is perfectly understandable, but Brock Glenn stayed. He didn't leave at that point. Then you go into this offseason, even after Brock Glenn had played a lot with Luke Krummenhoek. They rotated last year when DJ got hurt. You went out and got Tommy Castellanos, and he stayed again. So for those reasons, I think you can feel pretty comfortable that Brock Glenn's not going to just run away at the first chance, the first sign of adversity. I think it's more when you look at the way Mike Norvell handles players in general, he more so than some coaches, I think he likes to be as delicate as he can with those situations. He's not the kind of coach to be very abrupt if he is making that change. I think he would want to, out of respect for Brock, to kind of create that. So to me, I think it would stand to reason that Mike Norvell would try to be gentle with it. But at the same, and there are some coaches who wouldn't. Some coaches wouldn't care at all. They'd just be saying, "Oh yeah, Kevin Sperry's now our number 2," and just not worry about it. So there's a possibility that that is at play. But again, I still think, and I lean this way in general. I mean, if you go back to 2013 when there was questions about whether or not Jameis Winston was going to be the starting quarterback in 2013 as a redshirt freshman, even though he looked great in camp, or would they go with Clint Trickett, who was an older guy, or Jacob Coker, who was older than Jameis but not as old as Clint? Like, they had some other options. And at the time, I thought, Jimbo's probably going to go with an older guy and then maybe work Jameis in. So I usually lean towards that approach. And I think, if you're at Virginia and if you've got a 2 or 3 score lead, or if you're against Miami and you've got a lead in that game, I think the coaches will be tempted to go with the older guy because Brock Glenn has played in big college football games and Kevin Sperry has not. Conversely, if you're down in a game, maybe Kevin Sperry has shown you enough as a playmaker that if you need somebody to make plays, that you go to Kevin Sperry. So again, I'm not convinced of either scenario, but I feel like there's enough information out there to make me be unsure of what the real situation is.
It's totally fair, and it's a great thing to point out that Luke Kromenhoek left and Brock Glenn didn't, and that's the second time that he's had an opportunity to leave, and nobody would have blamed him for doing so, and yet here he still is. So the engagement thing is probably erroneous. He's probably absolutely locked in. So with that said, if you think that maybe there's still some things to be meted out, either in practice reps or maybe in the upcoming game, do you look at the decision for who comes in after Tommy comes off the field at all and put any stock into the Kent State decision? If it's Sperry a second time in a row, if it's Brock this time, and then maybe the coaching staff afterwards says, well, yeah, he's back up to speed health-wise. Do you look into that at all? Or do you think that in that scenario that you're describing, Tommy is unavailable for whatever reason in Virginia for a couple of drives? Do you think that whatever happens next week and whatever just happened against East Texas A&M has no bearing on that decision that they're going to be making in that ACC game?
Yeah, and going back to the thing what I said at the beginning about the facts, and I was just thinking about it as you were talking, like if we were presenting evidence, if this was presenting evidence in a case, like that would be another thing, and that would be another piece of circumstantial evidence. If he does go in second next week, now I'm feeling stronger that, okay, maybe he's the guy. Still not 100% sure what you do against Virginia or Miami, depending on the situation, but you'd feel much stronger about it because, again, Brock Glenn did get to play in that game. It would be a longer period of time since he had the injury. But honestly, the other thing that I think might cloud the waters is Brock looked good too. Like, they both look good. I thought Kevin Sperry looked very good. I think he played 4 of his 5 passes for 2 touchdowns. I think his quarterback rating or his passer efficiency rating is higher than Tommy Castellanos, which is one of the highest in the country. So he looked good. But then Brock Glenn came in, I think completed all 3 of his passes and looked very calm and comfortable, which, again, I would say this. I'd encourage people to look at Brock Glenn with an open mind from the standpoint of the offense he was playing in last year. They all look terrible. Luke Kromenhoek looked bad. He looked bad. DJ Uyunglele looked bad. They all look terrible because you had a bad offensive line and poor wide receiver play. So who was going to look good in that situation? And then when he got thrown into action the year before, those last few games, that was complete chaos. Jordan Travis goes down, and now you're stuck against your 2 biggest opponents of the year, Florida, and then the ACC championship game against a really good Louisville team, and then that Georgia game and the bowl game where, I mean, it's ridiculous to judge him on that. So I would just encourage people that if Brock Glenn does get the call, if he is the number 2 guy in a big situation, to keep an open mind, because he looked a lot better in this situation with a functioning offense than we've ever seen him before.
Yes, and what I'll say here is it's time for personal opinions. I'm asking questions, and we're delving into Kevin Sperry and how much you think that they trust him right now. I'm really excited about Kevin Sperry's skill set. He looks awfully calm, Ira, for a true freshman. That's one thing that you can't fake that. Like, he looked very, very calm. Body language wise, it was a non-design run that he had of his 3 runs. There's a design run. There's the rollout touchdown to Boggs. There's the beautiful touch on the throw to Chroma. And then Brock has his moments too. I think you could be in worse positions than have these 2 guys as your 2 backups, because I also think, it might not be a popular opinion, Brock's skill set does fit this offense very nicely too. I don't know that if these guys were both in a vacuum in their third year in college that Brock would be the better option than Kevin Sperry, but it doesn't work like that. Brock is older. Brock has more experience, and Kevin is a true freshman. But Kevin's built for this offense, but I think Brock Glenn is kind of built for Gus's offense too, because he's mobile enough, Ira.
100%. And not just the mobility. And that was the thing. Like when Luke Kromenhoek transferred, I was not surprised at all. And I honestly didn't think – I thought of the two, it might make more sense for Brock Glenn to stay, because it's not that Luke Kromenhoek's not a good athlete. He's a really good athlete too. He can really run. I don't know that he's going to be as willing a runner as Brock Glenn is. And that's, to me, I think that's the little extra ingredient that you get with Tommy Castellanos, you get with Kevin Sperry, and you get with Brock Glenn, is they're not just guys who can run, they're willing runners. Like they want to run. I know we've watched Brock Glenn in practice over these last couple of years when we were at every practice. He's a willing runner. There's no doubt about it. I think there were times he was mad he had a green jersey on. And so, yeah, I agree with you 100%. And that's why when Luke Kromenhoek left, I was like, yeah, I get it. And I don't know that's a huge loss, because I don't know that was going to be – not that he's not a tough kid. I just think Luke Kromenhoek and his family, the Kromenhoek family, wanted Luke to be a drop-back, pro-style quarterback and not necessarily a guy who runs this kind of offense.
Yeah, the Kromenhoek's nest. Sorry, that was very Corey of me to do that. But it seems like Florida State made a very good decision to go the direction it did, because if you believe whispers, and I don't know, this is probably reckless, but I think Tommy is a little cheaper of an option than what the Kromenhoek family was looking for Luke from an NIL standpoint. So nicely done, nicely redistributed funds by Florida State. Good choice there.
Yeah, and I think from what I was told, Tommy's well compensated, so he's doing fine. But no, based on what they've done, no question. I mean, the thing with Luke is he hadn't done anything, and it's not fair to judge him based on last season. Like I said, it's not fair to judge any of those quarterbacks last season, but you couldn't put all your eggs in that basket. And that's what you would have had to do if you were willing to pay the Kromenhoek's family what they were looking for. So, yeah, man, I think they did the right thing. And there was some risk involved with Tommy. And again, we still haven't seen how the season plays out. But I think, yeah, they clearly made the right decision. And as you said, they're in a good position, at least for this year, with these three guys, because I think you could roll any of them out there and do pretty well.
They all seem well trained up and ready to run that offense. Four completions on 5 passes, 61 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 carries, 22 yards. Those are the stats for Kevin Sperry, and one very intriguing storyline to watch as we get to Kent State week and to ACC play. We'll be back with more FSU freshman spotlight content and more content in general here, Florida State football-wise, on Warchant TV. We are the largest FSU fan community in the business at warchant.com. Head over there, sign up for $1, and you'll get a bonus membership to The Athletic after your first week at warchant.com.